Yo, what is up guys, your boy Zikage here with a one-shot series, and this is what if Deku had pop-off. So you may be thinking, pop-off? That's really weak. Well, trust me my friend, without even giving Izuku one for all, pop-off will be OP. So stick around to the end to see that, and enjoy the what if.
Talk to me next. Look, dirty, big body Benz, I got you. Scope on the kick, get in like a Mac. Can't fuck with these hoes, these bitches is true. I'm the middle, who's gonna need this attack.
So we start this series off at Izuku's birth, and the doctors were confused seeing Izuku's hair because for one, it was an entirely different color from either of his parents, and two, he has these little spheres growing from his scalp. So the doctors took baby Izuku away to try and remove them, but they soon found out that this was probably a mutant quirk, because once they removed it, they grew back within like 30 seconds. So this entire time of testing, Inko was afraid of what was going on with her son, but the doctors returned with good news. Her son had a quirk, and a mutant one at that. And they explained what Izuku has was very rare because his quirk is nothing like either of his parents. Inko and Isashi, hearing this, were shocked. So the next day they got to take their son home, and Izuku grew up a basically normal life with both his parents. But while Izuku was 4 years old and in his second year in the school system, all his classmates began developing their quirk. Some had very powerful quirks or potentially powerful quirks like Bakugo, and others with support type quirks like healing or enhanced intelligence. But soon everyone began comparing their quirks to everyone else's, and Izuku started getting mocked for his quirk like, come on, balls growing from your head and you're in a room with 4-year-olds, that won't end well. So for 2 years, Izuku was called names and said to not amount to anything in his future. Like, with a quirk like that, what person would he be able to save really? And due to the appearance and perceived weakness of Izuku's quirk, Hisashi dipped out of his life, and that, my dear friend, is what you call a trash father, leaving his son because of a few rumors? Okay. But unlike Mineta, Izuku used his intelligence to formulate a plan. He had done research on people with quirks that if you explain it, it does sound weak, but it's about how they use it. Imagine having the power of a rabbit. That sounds weak, but from years of training and combined with a mainly leg focused martial arts, you have a top 10 hero, and I'm talking about Mirko, of course. So all his classmates' words were just fuel to Izuku's burning desire to succeed. So for his entire school life, Izuku kept to himself, stayed out of trouble, and soon was known as a quiet kid in class. Because Izuku, he wouldn't be harassed by Bakugo because he wasn't quirkless, he just had a weak quirk, so Bakugo just didn't associate himself with Izuku. But outside of school, Izuku would start to work on his quirk from an early age, while people that age would normally be coloring or watching TV or something. So as soon as Izuku would get home, he would test all the capabilities of his quirk, and he learned basically everything about it. So it sticks to everything except him and can stick to each other and create chains or, things like that. So by the end of middle school, Izuku would be season 5 Mineta, like early season 5 Mineta's level at his quirk. So by the end of that school day, their homeroom teacher comes into the class and says, I was going to hand out these job application tests, but I know you all want to be heroes. And he throws the papers up, everyone's excited using their quirks. Well, the teacher says, alright everyone, quiet down, quiet down. Actually, see here, we have 2 students who want to go to UA. And Bakugo slammed his hands on the desk and said, what? I'm the only one from this school who's supposed to be applying. And he starts looking around at everyone in the class and says, which one of you losers applied to UA? But the entire class went silent. The teacher said, okay Bakugo, you can calm down, it's not a big deal. But before Bakugo could respond to him, Izuku got up and said, it was me. And everyone turned and looked at Izuku with a confused face, and Bakugo said, stop lying, ballhead. But Izuku had on a straight face. So Bakugo got up to him and walked to Izuku and twisted his shirt collar and said, "Take back your application or I'll do it for you." And sparks started coming out of his other palm. And the teacher rushed over to try and stop this confrontation, but Izuku acted quickly on his own and used his superior physical abilities to flip over Bakugo and throw balls on the wall in front of him and push Bakugo into them, stopping him from moving. And Bakugo, he began screaming at the top of his lungs, saying he's worthless, but in a position like that, Bakugo really has no right to talk. So the entire class was shocked and didn't even know Izuku's quirk could do that, and that he was even that athletic in the first place. So before Izuku left class for the day, because that's the last day of class, he said to Bakugo, "You had a lot of bark, but no bite in the end," and walked out. So Izuku goes home, leaving the staff at school to try and pry the balls off, but since Izuku is in good health, these would stick for days. But eventually they found a way around that and cut through the ball, but since half was on Bakugo's shirt still, like his shirt, his pants, basically all over, he would have to wait 3 days for them to come off as well. So because Izuku left school early and wasn't in a rush, he never had the encounter with the sludge villain. Instead, All Might just caught up with the villain, took him down, and brought him into the police. So now it's time for the 10-month training period. And during this time, Izuku started to ramp up his physical training and soon learned about the beach nearby, but it's partially abandoned because of all the trash on it. So, this was like the perfect plan for Izuku. He could clean it up, test his quirks, limitations, build muscle, and get a good name in the community. Of course, that wouldn't really help him now, but when he's an accomplished hero, these people would remember when, Izuku was a kid and he was helping them out even back then. So 5 months in, and people are already recognizing Izuku and bring him some sweets from time to time, just for his hard work. And quirk-wise, Izuku made some special moves, similar to Mineta's but more thought out, because Mineta would just be throwing ball after ball at the enemy without much thought behind it. So Izuku did put thought into it and it came out as a pretty good special move, something that would even work on some top 10 heroes, because the stickiness of Izuku's balls, okay, that's starting to sound weird. The stickiness of Izuku's spheres, they are dependent upon his health. So if he's sick, they won't really be that sticky. If he's healthy, so on and so on. But we'll get into those specifics of his moves while Izuku is using them in the entrance exams. And speaking of those exams, they are right around the corner. So for the next 4 months, Izuku trains physically and he also learns something new about his quirk. Water isn't affected by the stickiness of, okay, that just sounds weird. The stickiness of his spheres. It just acts as a regular ball whenever it touches it. So, that doesn't really seem important, but imagine a villain spraying water at Izuku. He can just put up a shield made of these spheres and he could reflect the attack back. So, we fast forward to the entrance exams. And Izuku, he walks up to the school confident as ever, and he doesn't trip, because why would he? And he goes in and he registers his name and goes to the first hall where the written exam is. And Izuku actually does really good in the written exams because he's way smarter than in canon, because he's had to come up with all these unique and creative ways to use his quirk. So onto the lecture hall with President Mike speaking about the different robots they will face in the mock city, and Izuku is sitting in the back next to Bakugo, who doesn't even know it's Izuku. That's how much he's changed. So Ida does his whole trying to be smart thing, but President Mike shuts him down real quick. And when he instructs everyone to go to their assigned gates, when Izuku gets up and walks in front of Bakugo, he looks up and sees his purple hair and then the balls attached to his hair, and he's like, wait, Izuku? But Izuku, he's already long down the hallway, and Bakugo, he's wondering if he's seeing things because that does not look like Izuku. First off, he is way taller and more like Ida's build. But anyways, Izuku goes to his gate and he sees Uraraka and she's really nervous, and he decides to go up to her to give her a word of confidence. But as he's walking, President Mike comes over the intercom and says, "There are no countdowns in a fight, go, go, go!" So everyone rushed out and Izuku starts throwing down his balls on the ground and jumping on them, because not only does he not stick to his spheres, but they push him. So he can move pretty quickly, and soon enough he comes face to face with a 2-pointer. And Izuku is surprisingly not phased. He just quickly throws down some spheres on the ground in front of the robot, so when it rolls over it, it gets stuck. And Izuku climbs onto the robot using his spheres again and rips off a chunk of metal, stabbing into the robot's neck area with a bunch of important wiring, shutting the robot completely down. So Izuku does something similar to all the robots he encounters, but something different from canon is that these fights are being recorded live. So from home, each of the students' family, they're cheering them on for their success, and just random people who want to see how the exams go. But not everyone watching has a positive outlook, as a TV is playing in a dark room of the students fighting, and a man says, "Get my suit ready." So we cut back to the entrance exams, and to a lot of people's surprise, Izuku is topping the leaderboards because there is a live point counter for the audience to watch, and the students can see it as well. So out comes the 0-pointer, and the sheer size of it sends most people running, but Uraraka, she did as well, but she was stuck under some falling rubble, and she laid there, and the 0-pointer came closer and closer, ready to run her over, but Izuku wrapped a chain of spheres. Bro, balls, whatever, bro. He wraps a chain of balls around the 0-pointer, attaching it to a building, stopping it in its tracks. And Izuku ran to Uraraka, but as he did, the 0-pointer broke off a chunk of the building and was now on the move. So Izuku carried Uraraka over his shoulders while the robot was chasing them, and he runs to the exit, but the robot still wasn't stopping. And in the observation room, Nezu is trying to press all sorts of buttons, trying to stop the robot, but it's on the loose and he can't do anything. So he was going to send out one of the teachers, but someone landed in front of the robot. A tall man dressed in a tux and had a breathing mask on, and he shot a massive air cannon at the robot, knocking it back. And All Might is watching and immediately knows who this is. He runs out of the room and to the city, and meanwhile, All For One turns to the students and said, "So it's either you join me or die." And I mean, they were all confused, but it was now obvious that this was a villain, and Ida was the first to act heroic and stood blocking All For One. But All For One started listing off quirk after quirk at a certain percentage, and his arm got bigger and bigger, while Ida's confidence got lower and lower, and All For One punched at Ida, but All Might arrived just in time, blocking the attack with air pressure from one of his more stronger punches. This blew the students back, but Izuku used 2 balls to stick himself to the ground so he wouldn't be, and All Might looked back and said to himself, "I should be more careful with these kids around." But him being distracted costed him, and All For One came and punched him across the face, sending him flying into a wall. Izuku thought quickly to buy time for All Might, so he threw down balls at All For One's feet, stopping him, and he couldn't move, and he said, "Damn annoying kid, get out of my way." And he blasted an air cannon at Izuku, who made a shield of his spheres, and this caused the air to bounce off into a random direction. And soon All Might recovered and saw All For One, so he rushed him and hit him dead on with a Detroit smash. And Izuku looked at All Might and said, "I think we can work together, All Might." Of course, All Might was not going to allow it, but Izuku pointed to where All For One was standing, and you saw Izuku's balls with a part of All For One's feet still attached to it. Feet? I mean, the bottom of his shoe still attached to it. So, I mean, if it was wasn't wearing shoes, his skin would come off. So Izuku's balls are really sticky. Oh, why did I do that? So All Might said, "Well, alright kid, but if it's too dangerous, we call it off." So Izuku heard him loud and clear and rushed over to where All For One was, and he was still knocked over, so Izuku threw a barrage of balls at him, but before they landed, All For One said, "Air cannon," and sent the sphere flying away, and they spread all around, landing on All Might, landing on the ground, just everywhere. And Izuku looked back to All Might to see if he was alright, and he was, they didn't stop him from moving, they just landed on his shirt and stuff. So he tried again and he ran towards All For One, who was starting to get pissed at this kid, and said, "Alright, try this," and shot a bolt of lightning towards Izuku, but he brought up a shield of his own balls. Still can't get over that. A shield of his own spheres, and when the lightning bolt hit it, it bounced back and this time hit All For One, stunning him for a few seconds, but that was all Izuku needed. He then threw down tens, nearly 100 balls until his head started bleeding, trapping All For One. And from this, Izuku was praised, so they would go on to clean up the entire area. All For One was sent into prison with Izuku still using his balls to restrain him until they could get, him into a more secure facility. So Izuku returned home, and that night on the news, because this entire thing was televised, Izuku was all over the news and people were calling him, a hero, and he was this young. Granted, Izuku had a lot to learn, but what a way to start his hero student journey. But that is where I'm going to be leaving this one off. I hope you guys like this little imagination of Izuku with Pop-Off. I honestly feel like this is where Mineta could take his quirk in the future. I mean, that's if he really tries, because I know Mineta, he's a lazy perv, but come on, we have to give him some props. But anyways, thank you guys for sticking around to the end of the video. If you liked it, like, and if you like my content in general, consider subscribing. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next What If.